First Class Productions.
The original Sonic the Hedgehog was a massive success for Sega. Even the 8-bit versions for Master System and Game Gear did fairly well in terms of sales and critical acclaim. Naturally, it didn't take long for Sega to produce sequels. Pretty much everyone and their grandma has played or at least knows about Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Mega Drive/Genesis. It's the definition of a classic Sega game.
What most people don't know is that Sonic 2 on the Master System and Game Gear came out about a month before the Mega Drive game in October of 1992.
Both versions were developed by Aspect, who would go on to create a whole array of 8-bit Sonic games later on. While the Game Gear version saw a worldwide release, the Master System port was only released in Europe and Brazil. Unlike the 8-bit version of the first game, which had some similarities to its Mega Drive counterpart, this one is totally unique and has nothing in common with the 16-bit game.
I discovered the Game Gear version in 2009 when I bought the Sonic Gems collection for the Nintendo GameCube. I remember resenting it for its harsh difficulty.
When I reviewed the game 10 years ago in 2011, I bought the Master System version on the Wii Virtual Console, which I thought was much more playable and even better than its predecessor.
After reviewing 8-bit Sonic 1 in my last video, I got curious. Is Sonic 2 on the Master System as great as I remember? Is the Game Gear port really that hard? How do these games hold up 29 years after their release? I think we need to answer these life-changing questions right now. After the intro.
GFrom, the gamer, the legend, he's come to show you the way in this world of games. GFrom reviews.
Here's a nice trivia question for you. Which video game introduced Sonic's sidekick Tails?
If you thought Sonic 2 for the Mega Drive, you're mistaken. Tails first appeared in the 8-bit versions of Sonic 2. He's not a playable character though, more of a damsel in distress or a fox in distress, I guess. Shockingly, he gets kidnapped by none other than Dr. Ivor Robotnik at the beginning of the game. The price for getting him and all the other animals back are the 6 Chaos Emeralds. What a cruel man. Don't you have a heart for animals, dude? The formula for this game is pretty much the same as in the original, but there are some tweaks here and there. The item boxes or TV monitors are back, but some are missing. The power sneakers only appear once in the Master System version and not at all on the Game Gear. We'll discuss later why that's actually a good thing. The shield is nowhere to be found, so all you have for protection are rings and the occasional invincibility power-up. Thankfully, Aspect heard our desperate cries and prayers and gave us back the ability to recover some rings after getting hit.
I seriously don't know if I could beat these games without this feature.
Also missing are the checkpoint arrows. Instead we have no checkpoints at all? I didn't remember this, but yeah, there are no checkpoints in this game.
The memories start coming back. All this pain.
For some reason they even got rid of bonus stages. Even though I didn't particularly enjoy them in the first game, they were great for racking up continues and extra lives. You can get continues by collecting Chaos Emeralds, which again are hidden within the stages, and finishing the act, or by getting a Tails symbol on the bonus panel. As far as I can remember, I've only seen it once.
I think we've covered the basics now, so let's check out the actual levels.
The game starts with the already mentioned intro. On the Master System it looks awful. By the way, that has to be the happiest kidnapping music I've ever heard. Every level starts with a title card and Tails is always in on the action. I never understood why. Was he originally supposed to be a playable character? Is he trying to save himself?
Is it his evil twin?
With so many Sonic games existing on this planet, the first level of Sonic 2 manages to stick out. Most Sonic games start with a Green Hill type zone with lots of green and blue. Underground Zone, on the other hand, takes a different approach. As the name suggests, it mostly takes place underground, with lava and spikes being the most common stage hazards.
Sonic 2 is notorious for its stage gimmicks, and the first one shows up here.
You can jump into these rail carts, and I quite enjoy them. In both of the first 2 acts you can take multiple paths. There are also quite a few hidden areas which you can get to by rolling into breakable walls. These often reward you with goodies. While jumping onto these springs, it can be difficult to see where you're going to land. But this level isn't the worst offender in that regard. Sometimes you have to take a risk, and getting to the Chaos Emerald is quite exciting. Just like before, Act 3 is rather short with a boss fight at the end. Again, there are no rings to be found in these stages.
This act features the most head-scratching moment in the entire franchise. Okay, I take that statement back, but check this out.
Sonic is falling to certain death, and who comes to the rescue? Dr. Frickin' Robotnik. I guess he couldn't stand the thought of not being the asshole responsible for the death of the almighty Hedgehog.
Well, I guess thanks to Robotnik, the next Sonic games could be made. Otherwise, Sonic would have been dead.
So he brings us to one of his machines, and this is the first boss fight. Robotnik doesn't fight himself in this game, which is a nice change of pace. The boss is some sort of ant, and oh boy, I'll say this, on the Master System, it's not too bad. You have to avoid the bouncing balls and the robot at the bottom right. At first, I died here more often than I'd like to admit, but once you found your rhythm, it's not that hard because the balls always have the same height. But on the Game Gear, it's a totally different beast. The height and speed of the balls is completely random, and with the limited screen, it's extremely difficult to avoid. I have gotten a game over here so many times it's not even funny. I honestly think that it's one of the hardest 2D Sonic bosses ever. Why is this fight at the beginning of the game? On the other hand, it would be 100 times more frustrating to have this boss near the end of the game, assuming that I would get a game over 9 times out of 10. Underground Zone is a pretty cool stage with a decent layout and visuals, but that boss on the Game Gear is almost game breaking. Or maybe I just suck, I don't know. Oh my god, tails! Did Robotnik cut off your 2 tails? Is that why you're using a hang glider? Sky High Zone starts off with 2 spike pits. I hate that you can't see where you have to jump in both versions. After that, it gets better though. Act 1 is super short. It doesn't take long before you find a hang glider.
Now, I've heard a lot of people talk smack about how uncontrollable this thing is. I was in that camp for the longest time, but it's really not that hard.
Run towards it, and once you're in the air, just tap backwards constantly. That way you'll almost fly in a straight line. Doing that makes you skip almost the entire level. The second act is a lot more challenging. Not only is it raining, but there are several hang gliders in this level, and the wind makes it a bit more difficult to navigate. Most troubling is the fact that a large chunk of the floor is covered in spikes. If you fall down, it's such a chore to get out. Getting the Chaos Emerald is an awful process. If you miss it with the hang glider, you have to jump on clouds. Since you can't see where you're jumping or which clouds you can actually stand on, that's easier said than done. Especially on the Game Gear. So much trial and error, and even if you know what to do, you have to be lucky enough to actually make it. It's baffling to me how they designed this stage because it's just plain terrible. Act 3 looks more friendly again, and here we have to fight ostrich babies? The mecha babies also have a mecha mother, and she is pretty easy if you watch out for the projectiles. Well, easy on the Master System. On the Game Gear, this boss fight sucks hard. When you jump on the head, sometimes Sonic bounces back into the fireball. Again, I've gotten so many game overs here and it's just frustrating. Especially if you're going for the Chaos Emeralds and have to get the one in Act 2 again. Sky High Zone is a pretty decent stage on the Master System with the exception of Act 2. On the Game Gear, it's mostly frustrating and no fun at all. Oh no, a water stage? Yes, Aqua Lake Zone has underwater sections.
But don't worry, it's not Labyrinth Zone 2.0.
As a matter of fact, Act 1 takes place mostly above the water if you do it right. You see, you can actually skim across the surface if you roll towards it with enough speed.
Who does Sonic think he is? Yeah, I know.
I don't know about you, but I think that's badass. Only near the end is the Holy Hedgehog forced to go underwater. It's a fairly short stage, which I like very much. Act 2 gives you Labyrinth Zone flashbacks. Not only does it look similar, but the entire stage takes place underwater. Not even Labyrinth was that cruel. On the Game Gear you can actually see the water rise. Naturally, this is a slow act, but at least that gives you the chance to admire these fountains. Underwater. Yeah, I get serious SpongeBob SquarePants vibes here. It's important to get air bubbles at every opportunity. I'm glad they stuck with the beeping sound when you run out of air. At least I can drown in peace. You can jump into some of the bubbles and use them to traverse vertically. By pushing up or down, you either go faster or slower.
That's my most disliked stage gimmick for sure.
Touching anything makes the bubble pop. There's one lengthy stretch that makes you move past arrows and crabs, and I swear I fall down about 5, 6, 7, 8 times on each playthrough. Not the most entertaining part of the game. In these tubes you sometimes have to push the right direction in order to change the course. Especially on the Game Gear, it's hard to react when you almost can't see what the hell is happening. This once again makes getting the Chaos Emerald more frustrating than it should be. In Act 3 we're back on the surface again. There's an underwater section with bubbles galore, again, but that part is skippable. The boss is a weird ass sea lion. It blows up its nose, which then becomes explosive. Somehow he has more noses in store. Sonic has to jump onto the nose as it gets bigger. The sea lion can also jump towards you and juggle you like a ball. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I can't help it. On the Master System it's a fairly easy fight, but on the Game Gear it can be irritating. It's not as bad as the first two though. All in all, Aqua Lake Zone is pretty good for a water stage. With the exception of this one part and the Game Gear boss, I can say that I'll gladly revisit this one in the future. Next up is not Green Hill Zone, but Green Hills Zone.
Why the S at the end of hill? I don't know and I don't care.
The stage resembles the original Green Hill Zone quite a bit, and it's odd that it's the 4th level. Act 1 is a straight up classic Sonic stage with lots of rings and even loop-de-loops. I'd say this is the best act so far, with next to no bullshit moments. Not even the Game Gear port can mess this one up. Act 2 is more of the same, with a few more spikes on the floor. These are a problem in the portable version. The 3rd act is where I lose my patience in a matter of seconds. You have to use springs to make it across a level that has spikes all over the place. Again, there are no rings in this stage. So imagine the frustration when you can barely see where you're going. The smaller screen on the Game Gear makes this part almost unplayable. And it's a freaking miracle that I haven't pulled my hair out by this point. It is one of the worst 2 parts of this game because there is no way you'll make it on your first attempt. How would you? You can't see shit!
Back when I played this the first time many moons ago, this was the part where I gave up. Having to start from the beginning and playing through 4 stages just to have a few shots at this part is one of the most frustrating things I can imagine.
The boss is a fucking pig, literally. Like Sonic, it can perform a spin jump and is immune when doing so. I had problems with it in the past, but now I think it's one of the easier bosses. Too bad you have to replay the entire act if you die on the boss. It's just wrong, man. In conclusion, Green Hills Zone has the 2 best acts of the game and one of the absolute worst. Sounds like the definition of a mixed bag. Gimmick Mountain Zone takes place inside of a mountain and it's full of, well, gimmicks. These wheels from Mega Drive's Scrap Brain Zone Act 2 are back, but they feel kind of off here. The level is full of conveyor belts and moving platforms. The rail carts are back and those are among my favorite moments. Act 1 has some really good platforming sections and it almost feels like a relief after the horrors we have just been through. In the 2nd act you have to jump through an invisible wall in order to get to the Chaos Emerald. Kind of cryptic, but there are several of these. Most likely you'll end up jumping into one of these walls by complete accident. Act 3 is kind of a slog because you have to stand on these platforms on the way to the boss and it takes too long for my taste.
You didn't have to duck on this spot on the Master System.
It's not challenging or anything, you just stand there and make the occasional jump. Dying on the boss means repeating all of that again. The boss is a boar which charges you at full speed. When he hides his spikes, you can jump on him. After that, 3 rocks will fall from the ceiling. On the Game Gear, it can be tricky to avoid these rocks. But all things considered, this is without a doubt the easiest boss in the game. I wouldn't go as far as calling Gimmick Mountain Zone the best zone, but I'm going to say that it's the one with the least amount of crappy gameplay elements.
It's a level that I don't really have on my mind when I think of this game, but it manages to surprise me when I play it every few years.
Even the Game Gear version is playable. That's saying something. We're almost at the end of the game. Scrambled Egg Zone, like the stage before it, takes place inside a mountain. Act 1 has to be one of the most annoying 2D Sonic stages in history. You use these tubes for transportation and just like in Aqua Lake Zone, you sometimes have to push a certain direction to change course. Missing the right exit forces you to repeat the entire section and that leads to a lot of trial and error. Especially on the Game Gear when you once again can't see where you're going. It's so exhausting and just looking at the footage makes me feel dizzy easy. As if that wasn't enough, Act 2 repeats the same shit but makes it 10 times worse. One thing that I haven't mentioned so far is that enemies respawn in this game. Messing up in the tubes brings back these goddamn bombs from Starlight Zone. Later in the stage, one mistake means instant death as you fall down onto spikes with no way out. Why are there no fucking checkpoints in this game? I loathe every second of this.
Remember when I said that Green Hills Zone Act 3 is one of the 2 worst parts of this game? This is the second one.
There are extra lives and lots of rings here, so it's unlikely that you'll get a game over in this stage. But Jesus Christ almighty, it's a pain in the ass. And I'm not talking about the Game Gear version, which obviously is hell on earth. Even on the Master System, it's by far the worst part of the game. I could go on for a while about how this is not worthy of Sonic's name, but I'll probably get a heart attack if I don't stop ranting. Breathe, GFrom. Breathe. Act 3 feels kind of pointless. Once you enter the tube, you don't have to do anything for 20 seconds straight, just to be killed by spikes at the end if you don't push left or right. Dying means watching these 20 seconds over and over again. What a waste of my precious time. The boss fight is interesting because it's our first encounter with a robotic version of Sonic. Here it's called Silver Sonic. The fight itself is the best in the entire game. Bouncing off of Silver Sonic is fun, and it's neither too hard nor too easy.
So what can I say about Scrambled Egg Zone? Other than the boss, it's pure torture and I never want to play it again. Period.
If you didn't manage to get all the Chaos Emeralds, the game ends right here. Sonic runs all day long until it's dark. He looks up into the sky and we see the ghost of Tails. Wait a minute, did Robotnik actually kill a sweet little fox?
What a fucking monster! No, 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 we can't have that.
In case you did manage to get all the Chaos Emeralds, destroying Silver Sonic gives you the 6th and final one. Having all 6 unlocks the real final level. Crystal Egg Zone has to be the most friendly final level of them all in the Sonic universe. Act 1 is ridiculously easy. The only hazards are collapsing ceilings and once again spikes on the floor. This game just can't get enough of these spikes. You can easily beat this one in under a minute. Act 2 introduces smaller wheels you have to use to get up, and again these just feel weird. Besides that, it's mostly just good old enjoyable platforming where you have to smash your way through walls.
Finally, we get our chance to fight Robotnik in person, and this fight is just insane.
Alright, so check this out. You have to jump at Robotnik on the right there, okay? While you're doing that, he shoots projectiles. So far, so good. These things fly around in the weirdest pattern, which is kind of unpredictable to dodge. Then sometimes there's electricity on the floor, which is nice. In addition to that, every now and then the whole area fills with electricity, which means instant death. You can hide in these tubes, but most of the time I can't find the right moment to get out and land a strike. The area is even too big for the screen, which is disorienting to say the least. All of this shit without a single ring. It sure takes a lot of skill, but I'm sure that you also need a bit of luck on your side. Of all the 2D Sonic bosses of that era, I think this one is by far the most difficult and frustrating.
At least you get unlimited continues when you get to Robotnik. Otherwise it would have been impossible for me to beat him.
As you can imagine, on the Game Gear it's also a real struggle and you can't even see the pipes on the side. But honestly, I don't think that this version of the boss is any harder than on the Master System. Either way, after what feels like hours of pain and agony, Robotnik is defeated and Tails is finally rescued. Hello, little buddy. Together they run until it's dark. They look up into the sky and... what does this mean? I have so many questions. Are they both dead? Did they commit suicide? Are these their parents? I suspect we'll never know.
Just like in the previous game, the soundtrack is pretty damn good.
I think I might prefer this one overall because nearly all of the tracks are quality 8-bit tunes. There are only a few exceptions. Crystal Egg Zone has the weirdest music you can imagine for a final level. What the hell even is this? Sounds like the first level of a game for babies. The other one I don't like is the boss theme on the Game Gear. For some reason it's not the same as on the Master System. It kind of hurts my ears. One track that I liked at first but changed my mind on is Scrambled Egg Zone. These stages take too long and hearing this tune the whole time really stresses me out after a while. Other tracks are much better. Underground Zone is energetic and gets you motivated from the very beginning. I even like the laid-back style of Sky High Zone. Just barely missing out on the podium is the Master System boss theme. That one gets me pumped every time.
Like always, now it's time to honor the best of the best. Here are my top 3 songs from Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Number 3. The water levels in 8-bit Sonic games always seem to have really awesome music. This one has a cool sound to it, which I absolutely dig. So when I get irritated when trying to get up this spot here over and over again, at least there is great audio playing. Number 2. This one has grown on me over time. It gives me positive feelings and even surpasses the original Green Hill Zone tune for me. Back when I reviewed this game in 2011, I didn't know this because I hadn't played it yet, but this one was later remixed for the European and Japanese versions of Sonic CD, you know? That just proves that they had a potential hit in this game. I love it. Number 1. This might seem like an odd choice, but hear me out. Every time I get an invincibility power-up, I get really excited. I always seem to forget what a kick-ass tune this is, so every time I get surprised how good it is. I just want to destroy everything in my path and it makes me feel powerful. Maybe even invincible?
It's time to wrap things up.
Sonic the Hedgehog 2, quite frankly, isn't as great as I remembered. Don't get me wrong, I do like the game and it has many qualities to it, but some of these levels suffer from poor level design. On the Master System, I can nail it down to 4 acts that I don't like, plus the final boss. The Game Gear version, however, man, this one blows. You can tell that they didn't adjust the levels to fit the smaller screen at all. Did they just forget, or was this done on purpose? Sonic is way too fast, and if you don't crawl along at a snail's pace, you're almost guaranteed to die many unfair deaths. You can't react to anything.
If this version had the speed shoes, I'm certain the console would have exploded into a million pieces.
It just blows my mind that they released the game like that. The first one had its issues, but that one played way better. On the other hand, I think the Master System version is an improvement over the first game. Sonic controls great and the sense of speed is just right. There are no bottomless pits in this game, but sadly they felt the need to put spikes everywhere. Most of the time you can't see them and it feels kind of cheap. Another thing that baffles me are the boss fights. How come the bosses just get easier with every level? If I had to rank them, the first one is the hardest and the 5th one the easiest. What's the logic behind that? It makes the beginning of the game really hard, especially on the Game Gear. I can imagine that most gamers wouldn't make it much further than stage 2 before throwing the game out the window.
So honestly, just forget about the Game Gear port. It's not worth your trouble.
The Master System version is much easier to get into, with the exception of the 4 acts I mentioned earlier. I enjoy most of the game and have a lot of fun playing it. Sure, it takes practice, but running and jumping through some great stages like Green Hill Zone Act 1 and 2, Underground Zone and Gimmick Mountain Zone is a blast. Gameplay aside, I think that the visual presentation is superb. It's one of the best looking games on both systems. So my ranking on the Sonic games I've reviewed so far looks like this. I will only list one version per game, otherwise it will get too confusing and difficult. As far as I know, you can't download the Master System version legally anymore, which is a shame. You can download the Game Gear version on the 3DS eShop, but do so with caution.
8-bit Sonic 2 might have aged well, but only on the Master System.
Hey everyone, this is GFrom. Thank you so much for watching my video. Feel free to rate, comment, subscribe and follow me on social media. I'll see you later. Have a nice day.